Cambridgshire is typical of a lot of lowland Britain. Small islands of ancient wildlife habitat, intensive farmland, new developments and wildlife trying to cope in that landscape in the face of climate change. The Wildlife Trust is preserving and maintaining those islands of habitat as nature reserves. We're expanding those nature reserves and we're trying with our neighbours to join those sites up to give us a connected landscape for wildlife and for local people. Here we are in Cambs, a new village in Cambridgeshire. 10 years ago there was nothing on this site, it was just flat farmland. We now have a series of lakes, the one behind me has breeding tufted ducks on it, and a wealth of wildlife. Interestingly, open water like this is probably more abundant in lowland England now than it's ever been since the Ice Age. Through gravel pits, clay pits, the balancing lakes for new settlements, we've more open water than we've ever had. Dragonflies are probably more abundant in England now than they've ever been. And a lot of wetland wildlife moves around really effectively. This lake has reeds and sedges, watermint, lots of other wildflowers around it, carried here on the feet or inside the guts of ducks and geese that fly from lake to lake, dropping off the seeds and some of the wetland insects as they go. As things stand at the moment, these sites are colonised by the species that have been around for a long time, but with climate change we can expect new wildlife to be arriving here too. If the reed beds are big enough, we can hope for birds like the little bittern. We're already seeing little egrets, small white herons, here at Cambs on a regular basis. That's a bird that didn't breed in Britain until about 15 years ago. Climate change will bring us lots of opportunities for new bird species. Penduline tits could form their amazing dangling nests underneath the willow trees around lakes like this. Behind me here is one of the amazing network of footpaths and cycleways which are also brilliant wildlife corridors. We've got bare ground and short grass, we've got long grass, bushes, trees, we've even got a ditch with some water in it, so wildlife can move through this landscape in a way that it couldn't do when it was open farmland. Here we are at Gamlingay Wood, one of Cambridgeshire's ancient forests and just a few miles down the road from Cambs. So on my left we've got ancient woodland, oak and ash trees in the same place that's had trees growing on it for something like 7,000 years, and it's got the wildlife to prove it. On the other side, intensively farmed land, and in between a narrow buffer of grassland. A lot of the woodland species are not built for long distance dispersal. They live within the woods, they can't survive outside it, and unlike some of the wetland plants and animals, they've no easy way of getting from one wood to the other unless there's a physical linkage, a belt of trees, a hedgerow, or preferably quite a broad strip of woodland. So woodland wildlife doesn't move across open countryside very easily. In this area, the Wildlife Trust has set about acquiring bits of land to allow trees to grow, to create woodland linkages. But really impressively, 26 of our neighbours are also involved in this project. Local farmers putting down new hedges, shelter belts, blocks of trees, so that South West Cambridge is going to have more woodland and linkage in the future than it's had for many hundreds of years. Here in the dark and shady heart of the ancient woodland at Gamlingay, I'm surrounded by plants like dog's mercury and yellow archangel, and especially by bluebells. Come here in May and it's a carpet of blue flowers, very popular with local people. At this time of year I'm looking at the empty seed pods of the bluebells. Grub around on your hands and knees and you can find the seeds themselves. Quite large, quite heavy, shiny and black. These seeds fall directly underneath the parent plant. They're not going to travel very far at all, maybe 10 or 20 centimetres at most. So whereas some plants can travel long distances, bluebells are confined to their habitat and do very well within that woodland, but they can only travel beyond the wood if we provide those linkages. Okay, here we are back at Cambs, completely new habitat. It's only been here 10 years or less. And next to me, completely new wildlife. I'm sitting next to a wasp spider, huge black and yellow beast, first seen in Cambridgeshire less than a year ago, and now potentially colonising the whole of lowland England. Wasp spiders, though, can disperse. They fly on a strand of silk and can land anywhere. They could be in a grassland next to you right now. If all wildlife was able to disperse like that, it would be fine in the face of climate change. Because it can't, we need those bigger nature reserves, better managed for climate change adaptation, and joined up, a linked, connected countryside that wildlife can move through.